Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Police-citizen interactions in discourse analysis. Interactive assistant police-citizen interactions refer to the verbal and non-verbal exchanges between law enforcement officers and civilians in various settings, such as traffic stops, interrogations, emergency calls, and street encounters. In discourse analysis, these interactions are studied to understand how language and communication are used to establish authority, negotiate compliance, manage conflict, and construct social identities. Police-citizen discourse is particularly significant because it often involves power imbalances and high-stakes situations, where language can shape legal outcomes, affect public perception, and influence the relationship between police and the community. Discourse analysis of police-citizen interactions focuses on how language reflects and enacts power dynamics, how police officers use language to control situations, and how citizens respond or resist through their own language choices. By analyzing the specific linguistic features of these exchanges, such as questioning techniques, directives, politeness strategies, and framing, researchers can uncover how authority is asserted, how conflict is managed, and how different social roles, e.g., suspect, officer, witness, are constructed and reinforced through language. Key features of police-citizen interactions in discourse analysis. 1. Power dynamics and authority. One of the central features of police-citizen interactions is the power imbalance between officers and civilians. Police officers typically hold institutional authority, and their language often reflects this authority through commands, requests for compliance, and control over the interaction. Example: a police officer might say, "Step out of the vehicle and show me your license," issuing a directive that asserts control over the interaction. Discourse analysis would explore how such directives reflect the officer's institutional authority and how the citizen's response, compliance or resistance, influences the dynamic of the encounter. 2. Questioning techniques and eliciting information. Police officers often use specific questioning techniques to gather information, establish facts, or challenge a citizen's account. These questions can be open-ended, designed to gather details, or closed-ended, aiming for confirmation of a specific fact. Example: an officer might ask, "Where were you coming from tonight?" to open up a conversation about a citizen's activities. Discourse analysis would examine how the use of open-ended questions invites a narrative response, while follow-up questions or interruptions may guide or limit the citizen's account. 3. Directives and compliance. In many police-citizen encounters, officers issue directives that require compliance from the citizen. These directives can range from polite requests to more forceful commands, and discourse analysis examines how language is used to achieve compliance or deal with resistance. Example: an officer might use a polite request such as, "Could you please step out of the car?" or a more forceful command like, "Get out of the car, now." Discourse analysis would investigate how the level of politeness or directness affects the interaction and how the citizen responds, either by complying or resisting the command. 4. Politeness strategies and face-threatening acts. Politeness strategies play an important role in police-citizen interactions, particularly when officers are trying to balance authority with maintaining positive relations. Conversely, some interactions may involve face-threatening acts, where a person's dignity or self-respect is challenged. Example: an officer might say, "I'm just going to ask you a few questions. No need to worry," using polite language to ease tension while maintaining authority. Discourse analysis would explore how this politeness strategy serves to reduce the confrontational tone of the interaction. On the other hand, a more confrontational approach like, "Why are you lying to me?" may escalate the interaction and challenge the citizen's credibility, functioning as a face-threatening act. 5. Negotiation of social identity. Police-citizen interactions often involve the negotiation of social identities, where participants are positioned as suspects, witnesses, victims, or officers. Discourse analysis examines how these roles are constructed and reinforced through language. Example: during a traffic stop, a citizen might attempt to position themselves as cooperative by saying, "I wasn't aware of the speed limit, but I'm happy to follow your instructions." Discourse analysis would explore how the citizen's language constructs a compliant identity, and how the officer's response either reinforces or challenges this identity. 6. Conflict and resistance. Police-citizen interactions can sometimes escalate into conflict, particularly when the citizen resists compliance or questions the legitimacy of the officer's actions. Discourse analysis focuses on how conflict emerges through language and how participants manage or resolve these conflicts. Example: a citizen might challenge an officer's authority by saying, "I don't see why you're pulling me over. I didn't do anything wrong." Discourse analysis would examine how this challenge to authority disrupts the power dynamic and how the officer uses language to reassert control, potentially escalating the situation. 7. Framing of the situation. How a situation is framed by both police officers and citizens can significantly influence the interaction. Discourse analysis explores how participants use language to frame their actions, justify behavior, or construct the context of the encounter. Example: a police officer might frame a routine traffic stop as a matter of safety by saying, "I pulled you over for speeding because it's a dangerous area with a lot of accidents." Discourse analysis would explore how this framing legitimizes the officer's actions and attempts to position the stop as a protective measure rather than an authoritarian one. Methods for analyzing police-citizen interactions in discourse. 1. Critical discourse analysis, CDA. Critical discourse analysis, CDA, is used to examine how power, ideology, and institutional authority are reflected in police-citizen interactions. CDA explores how language enforces social control, reflects systemic inequalities, and influences the perception of law enforcement. Example: a CDA of police body camera footage might reveal how officers use language to assert control over racialized citizens, highlighting how discourse reflects broader societal power imbalances, particularly in contexts of racial profiling. 2. Conversation analysis. Conversation analysis focuses on the structure of interaction between police and citizens, such as how participants manage turn-taking, interruptions, and topic shifts. This method is useful for understanding how police officers guide conversations and how citizens respond. Example: in a police interrogation, conversation analysis might focus on how officers interrupt or steer the suspect's narrative, using questions like, "Let's go back to what you said earlier," to refocus the conversation on a specific detail. The analysis would explore how these interactional moves shape the suspect's testimony. 3. Speech act theory. Speech act theory examines the specific speech acts, commands, questions, promises, etc., used in police-citizen interactions and how these acts function to assert authority, request compliance, or challenge behavior. Discourse analysis explores how these speech acts impact the flow and outcome of the interaction. Example: when an officer says, "You're under arrest," this speech act performs the legal function of initiating the arrest. Discourse analysis would examine how such speech acts change the nature of the interaction, shifting the power dynamics and limiting the citizen's agency. 4. Frame analysis. Frame analysis looks at how police and citizens construct the context and meaning of their interaction through language. This method focuses on how participants frame their behavior or the situation to justify actions or assert legitimacy. Example: a citizen might frame a police stop as unnecessary harassment, saying, "You're just stopping me because I'm driving an old car." Frame analysis would explore how this framing challenges the officer's authority and how the officer might reframe the stop as standard procedure, asserting its legitimacy. Examples of police-citizen interactions in discourse analysis. Example 1. Directives and resistance in traffic stops. During a traffic stop, an officer might say, "License and registration, please," issuing a directive that expects compliance. Discourse analysis would examine how the citizen responds, whether by complying or resisting, and how the language used in this exchange reflects the power imbalance between the officer and the citizen. Example 2. Questioning techniques in interrogations. In a police interrogation, An officer might use closed-ended questions like, "Were you at the store around 10 p.m.?" to elicit a specific response. Discourse analysis would explore how the officer uses these questions to control the narrative and how the suspect's responses either align with or challenge the officer's assumptions. Example 3. Politeness strategies in community policing. In a community policing context, an officer might approach a citizen and say, "Good afternoon. Just doing a routine check. How are you today?" Discourse analysis would focus on how the officer's use of politeness strategies and casual language attempts to build rapport, contrasting with the more formal language used in enforcement contexts. Example 4. Conflict and escalation in street encounters. In a tense street encounter, a citizen might say, "I know my rights. You can't search me without a warrant," challenging the officer's authority. Discourse analysis would investigate how this challenge escalates the interaction and how the officer responds, possibly by using legal language to reassert control. Example 5. Framing in public protests. During a public protest, police officers might frame their presence as ensuring public safety, with language like, "We're here to keep everyone safe and maintain order." Discourse analysis would explore how this framing is designed to legitimize police actions, while protesters might use counter-framing to present the police as oppressors, saying, "They're trying to silence us." Challenges in analyzing police-citizen interactions through discourse. 1. High-stakes context. Police-citizen interactions often occur in high-stakes situations where emotions run high, and the consequences of miscommunication can be severe. Discourse analysts must carefully consider the contextual pressures that shape how language is used and interpreted in these interactions. 2. Power imbalances. The inherent power imbalance between police officers and citizens makes it difficult to analyze interactions without recognizing the institutional authority held by officers. Discourse analysts must be sensitive to how this imbalance affects the dynamics of the conversation. 3. Multimodal communication. Police-citizen interactions often involve nonverbal communication, such as body language, gestures, or tone of voice, which are crucial in shaping the interaction. Discourse analysts must account for these multimodal elements, especially in video-recorded encounters. Conclusion. Police-citizen interactions are a critical focus of discourse analysis, offering insights into how language is used to assert authority, negotiate compliance, manage conflict, and construct social identities. By examining the power dynamics, questioning techniques, politeness strategies, and framing used in these interactions, discourse analysis reveals the complex ways in which language shapes the outcomes of police encounters. Whether analyzing routine traffic stops, interrogations, or public protests, discourse analysis helps uncover how communication between law enforcement and civilians reflects broader social dynamics, including power, control, and resistance. Through this lens, researchers can better understand the role of language in shaping the relationship between police and the public. Frequently asked questions. What are police-citizen interactions in discourse analysis? Police-citizen interactions refer to verbal and non-verbal exchanges between law enforcement officers and civilians in various contexts, including traffic stops, interrogations, and public encounters. Discourse analysis in this context examines how language shapes authority, compliance, and social roles. Why are police-citizen interactions significant for discourse analysis? These interactions often involve power imbalances and high-stakes scenarios. Discourse analysis helps reveal how language reflects and reinforces these power dynamics, how conflict is managed, and how different identities are constructed through communication. What key features of language are analyzed in police-citizen interactions? Power dynamics and authority. Language reflects the officer's control and the civilian's response. Questioning techniques. Used to gather information or guide the conversation. Directives and compliance. Commands issued by officers and how civilians comply or resist. Politeness strategies. The use of politeness to manage the interaction or face threatening acts. Social identity. Construction of roles like suspect, officer, or witness. Conflict and resistance. How disputes arise and are managed through language. Framing of the situation. How language justifies or challenges actions during the encounter. How do power dynamics manifest in police-citizen interactions? Officers use authoritative language to control the situation, such as directives, "Step out of the vehicle," while civilians may respond with compliance or resistance. Discourse analysis examines how these interactions reflect institutional power and social hierarchies. What role do questioning techniques play in these interactions? Questioning can gather information or challenge a citizen's account. For example, open-ended questions like, "Where were you tonight?" encourage narrative responses, while closed-ended questions may seek confirmation. Discourse analysis explores how these techniques frame interactions and guide the conversation. How do directives function in police-citizen discourse? Directives range from polite requests to firm commands and serve to establish officer control. Analyzing language like, "Could you please step out?" versus, "Get out of the car now," reveals how tone and wording affect compliance and interaction tone. What are face-threatening acts, and how are they managed? Face-threatening acts challenge a person's self-respect or social image. For instance, accusations like, "Why are you lying to me?" can escalate tension. Discourse analysis studies how these acts influence interactions, balance authority, or lead to resistance. What methods are used to analyze police-citizen interactions? Critical discourse analysis, CDA, examines power, ideology, and social control. Conversation analysis focuses on turn-taking and interruptions. Speech act theory analyzes speech acts like commands or questions. Frame analysis studies how interactions are contextually framed by both parties. Can discourse analysis address conflict in police-citizen interactions? Yes, discourse analysis explores how language escalates or de-escalates conflict. For example, challenges like, "I know my rights," may shift the power balance, prompting officers to use legal language or assert control. What challenges do analysts face when studying police-citizen discourse? High-stakes contexts. Emotions and outcomes are significant, impacting language. Power imbalances. Analysts must consider inherent authority and its influence. Multimodal communication. Nonverbal cues like tone and gestures add complexity.